USA Warrior Stories is a not-for-profit organization designed to record, archive, and share videos of veteran stories, to help veterans make a connection with one another and to help us all better understand their sacrifices for our freedoms.
I'll show you my Marine picture. This was I was in the Marines. Yeah, I like the Marines. To me, they was the best men that you could know, because if you go to a bar fight, they gonna fight with you. Now in the Air Force, they ain't gonna fight with you at all. They gonna leave. Okay, my name is Anthony Atkinson, and I grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina. I came at the end of Jim Crow. I said during Jim Crow, it's not the end. I was the youngest of 5 kids. So I was the only one who wasn't baptized. And they didn't turn out too good. And I looked at them and said, I wasn't going to be like them. And I went to I say a white school. And my mom asked me did I want to go to that school. And I said, yeah, because they have a better education. They have best books. And she said, okay, I'm going to let you go to that school then. So I went to that school. That's how I got the name Swazi. I was in music class. I was in Chestnut Junior High School. It was a music class. Hold him down, the Swazi Warrior. Hold him down, the Swazi King.
Hold him down, the Swazi Warrior. Hold him down, the King.
And I said, why did they sing that song? I didn't like that. And it was a slave song, and they sang that song, and the girls would want to rub my hair. All the white girls would want to say, oh, you got nice hair. So they would rub my hair, and this white guy would say, I got cooties. I said, what is cooties? And it started a fight. So he said, you look like that Swazi. I said, that's not me. And then I started fighting. Every time somebody called me Swazi. I was trying out for the basketball team, and the coach said, why don't you find out what Swazi mean? So I looked it up. And Swazi mean black in Swahili, black king, black warrior. And I said, that could be me. That's better than calling me a nigger or something like that. So they started calling me a Swazi, and I like that. I got cut in the 7th grade, and the coach said, you should go to this basketball camp. And he told me to go to that camp. I told my mom about it. I came home, I got cut. I said, well, Mom, that camp cost $500 for a week, right? And I say, I need $500 to go to that camp. I was in 7th grade, right? And my mom wasn't working nowhere, and she said, I ain't got that money. Get out of my face with that. January, I was bugging her again. I said, I need $500 to go to that camp. She said, get out of my face. I ain't got that money. March, I bugged her again, and she said she ain't had that money. So I quit. Asked her about it. It was June. No, I think it was March. Anyway, I quit asking her about the money, and she came to me and said, I got the money. I said, what money? For that camp. You still want to go to that camp? I said, yeah. These white guys, well, they would come with a sweaters around their neck, and they would kill us. I went to that camp and came back, and I came to those 3 guys, right, who was killing us on the basketball court. And I came back that summer. They came, I was in the 8th grade. That summer I came, and they came out, and I beat them, and they couldn't believe it. They would chase me down for a basketball, and I would kill them, right? I was the best in my high school coming up. Me, John Lucas, and Walter Davis, and was another guy. I don't know who it was. We was the best coming out of North Carolina. And I'm going to Georgia State, and their record was 1 in 25, but they was in Atlanta, so I say, Atlanta got a pro team there. If I'm good, I would get a look. This is my first year here.
Okay, this is 74, you said,
74,
right?
74?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 74. And I'm going to turn the page, and they got pictures of me. I'm 21 and 22. They got pictures of me shooting free throws and doing layups and stuff like that. The first year, I was a leading scorer for the Georgia State. The second year, I averaged about 10, but I could have averaged more, but I wanted everybody to score. We became 9-0. So they got mad at the coach and me, and they decided they won't come to practice no more. I was disenchanted with the guys that let me down for the basketball team. So that's when I went in the Marines. I said, I need to do a change. I was 22 or 23. The guys were 18. But in Paris Island, I was in such good shape when I went in that I would leave it would run 2 miles, right? And I would leave everybody behind and go in backwards, the last mile. And so the drill instructors would get mad and say, "Oh, you think you're better than we are? You're gonna train with the officers. You can wear the tennis shoes and you gonna give you socks." Now, when I was running 2 miles, we was running in boots. So when we ran into officers, they left me behind twice. They lapped me twice, and I wasn't used to that. And I said they must have been training with the football team or something. They animals. I went to a aircraft school in Millerton, Tennessee. Now, in that school, they call that self-paced. At that school, I was in charge of 20 Marines. They put me in the barracks in charge of 20 Marines. I had to march them to class and march them back. But there was one guy that didn't want to clean up. There was one white guy said, "I ain't gonna." So the drill instructor, that's what he was. He was in charge of the barracks. He said, I want you, whatever you do, I want him to clean up. So whatever you do to him, you do it to him. I say, well, what you want me to do then? So he told me, he didn't tell me to beat him up or nothing. He put me in the room by myself with him. He said, okay, not with him by myself, but other black guy was with me. And I jacked this guy up. I had him in the air. I said, "Why are you not cleaning up?" and stuff like that. And he said, "I'm never going to clean up. And you better watch yourself when you go to bed." This is a young guy. So I went to bed, and the other guy, the black guy, said, "Don't worry about him." And I went to bed, and when they cut the lights off, they threw the blanket around this guy, and then they call it a blanket party. And they beat him unmercifully. And they told me not to get up. "Don't you get up, because he going to say you did it." So I stayed in bed, and the next morning he came to me, and he said, "Whatever you want me to do, I'm going to do it." And I had no more trouble out of him for 3 months, and then I left, I came back to Marietta, Georgia, to work on planes. I worked on OV-10s here. The camaraderie was good. There was 15 black guys and 15 white guys, and they trained me to work on planes, and I trained them to work on planes. And what happened? The white guys who I was training was getting promoted quicker than we were. They didn't pass me, but they was passing the other guys in a way, and they didn't like that. So they didn't want to do mechanics no more. They become bomb lift and stuff that they didn't want to do. And I said, I'm not going to do that. I went in the Marines to be a mechanic, and that's what I'm going to do. And so as soon as they became bomb lifts and stuff, they promoted us. There was 3 of us, promoted us to be, I became a corporal. I was there for 4 years. Here's what happened in Marietta. The Delta mechanics, the Delta pilots and the Eastern pilots, I wanted them to vouch for me for working on their planes, and they wouldn't. So I asked them, I say, your planes are landing pretty good though, right? And they got mad. They went to my commander and my commander told me not to ask them again. They're not obligated to tell that you worked on their planes, and you're not obligated to ask them to do that. And so I said, okay, I gotta go in active duty. So that's what made me go active duty was asking the Delta pilots and Eastern pilots to vouch for me to be a mechanic, and they wouldn't do it. This point was when I decided to go into the Air Force. I was working as a Marine in 29 Palms. The Marines was in the desert. They was doing their drills. They was their camouflage and everything. And I looked over and I said, "Who live in those air-conditioned places?" And the guys who was there would say, "The Air Force." I said, "What did they do?" They say they work on planes just like you, but they in air conditioning. I said, "I'm in the wrong force." And that's what I changed. They sent me to Turkey. I said, "Why do you send me to Turkey?" The commander, right? And the commander said, "Well, you was an ex-Marine, and we thought you would last longer than the other guys were getting in trouble, and they was going to jail. And you have more discipline." Anyway, in Turkey, I say, "How can I get out of Turkey?" Turkey was so bad. They say, "Well, I wasn't going to play basketball no more." They said, "Play basketball, play baseball." I said, "Oh, I got to play basketball again." So I tried out for basketball and made it. So I came back to my where I work at, and everybody, I don't know the white guys, they was from all the bad places you could think of, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, North Carolina, South. They say, "Well, we're not going to train you, and we don't want you to go anywhere." So I went to my not my commander, the master sergeant in the police who was training me, and I told him about it. So he went to my commander, and my commander came to my what they call him, went to him, a master sergeant, and told him, "If I'm not on the next plane out here, then he is fired." But the team that I was playing with, they was the worst team I ever played with in my life. They was selfish. They was everything. They wouldn't listen to nobody. So anyway, we ended up winning the USAFE. This picture is when I won. They gave me the strings and the trophy. I don't know how we won that, but we did. And we came back to Turkey, and they trained me to work on planes, and we had about 8 months we worked on planes. The other 4 months we played basketball. Yeah, 1 year in Turkey, and the next year was in Greece. I love Greece because Greece, food was good, and the women was naked. You go to the beach, they be topless. I was unbelievable. The first year at Turkey, it was unbelievable because the second year I was giving everything. I was like a pro player that was giving everything but money. To get out, yeah, you can't get out of the Air Force in Greece. You got to come back and stateside for a year. So they put me on Destin Island, Hubert Field, Eglin Air Force Base. I couldn't believe they put me on Destin Island. It was white sands on the beach and an apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment. It was like, I couldn't believe it. It was like everything was unbelievable. Being in the military was like an unbelievable setting, but I had to make that myself. And then I came to Atlanta again. Tried to get on with Delta and Eastern to hire me, and American, and they wouldn't hire me. United hired me to fire me. Can you imagine being hired to fire? They hired me, and they hired me as a sheet metal mechanic. So now when you go to the floor, after training, right? You go to the floor, and it's 100 people that work on a plane, and all the white guys would be with an older white man who would show them the ropes, and me, I would be by myself. So the black guys would come off the floor to help me. It was 2 black guys. I remember their name, Harold Hooks and Giles. The supervisor would tell them to get back to work, and he'd say, "I'll get back to work when I show him how to be a mechanic." The story was, I was working on the plane. I was a lead mechanic in Indiana at the time. I was working, and the guy just made lead. He's just made foreman. He was a R&D mechanic, made foreman, and he started asking me about, is this job going to be done? And I told him the job going to be done when they finish doing what they're doing. Okay? And so he come back to me again an hour later, and I told him again, the job going to be done when they finish doing that. So he come back 2 hours later, and I said, don't you ask me that again. Are you blind? Are you crazy? Or whatever? Don't you ask me about that again. I told you when that job's going to be done, that's when it's going to be finished. And so he came again, and I told him again, I'm not talking to you no more. And so by that time, I went to my car. The next day, I went to my car to get some out of my car. He said, did anybody tell you to do that? I said, nobody don't need to tell me to do that. I do that when I'm a lead. I can do that. I can take lunch breaks and when I want to. No, you can't. So anyway, he wrote me up for stealing time from the company. And it took me 5 minutes to go to my car and come back. And they put me out of work. They put me out of work for 2 years. I ended up working for ATA. But the leads, all the leads in Indiana, they came to my aid. And so I had an arbitrator in Chicago. The leads came to the arbitrator. And the arbitrator was a full-blooded Indian. And when she went to they had a desk for her. And when they went to evaluate all that, she put on her moccasin underneath. I said, oh, she put on her moccasin. So she wasn't going to let them get away with lying. After that arbitration, they couldn't fight. For 10 years, they didn't mess with me. The last 10 years, they did. I sued them again. So the benefit, they gave me flying. I could fly free. My kids can fly free. I can get cars. I can get a hotel. But they weren't going to give me the money. My whole life was battles. I had to fight bullies. The whole life was bullies. I had to fight bullies the whole time growing up. Even white bullies, black bullies and white bullies. I had to fight them to get where I'm at today.